Happy Friday and welcome to today's episode of Friday Tech Bites. Melissa, how are you doing on this? I don't know if it's rainy for you yet Friday.
Not quite yet, but I'm doing good, Rick. How about you?
I'm doing good here in Central Ohio. We're getting the cloudiness, we're getting the rain. It's summer, but a rainy day in
Yeah.
summer, still a day in summer. So that's the way I look at it. Um, so Melissa's in New Jersey. I'm in Central Ohio. We have a producer in the ATL, a producer in Romania. We are quadcasting. It all worked today. Isn't that a relief, Melissa?
Very, very good, Rick. Very
It's
good.
not, that is, you can't always expect that. But on the streams that have a chatter, if that is such a thing, go ahead and drop in there and let us know where you're tuning in from. We'd love to light up the application here as you're seeing. So just let us know what's going on. But speaking of what's going on, Melissa, what's our topic here for today?
We're going to talk about ransomware, but not just any old ransomware. We're going to focus on exfiltration and why you should care.
Yeah, this is a different type of ransomware. I would, we were debating on whether to put it on the slide, but I was wanting to say this is not your grandpa's ransomware. So, educate us a little bit. What is
Right.
exfiltration?
So anytime anybody says ransomware, we're like, oh no, encryption. There's a big lock screen. I can't use my computer. Help, help, help. But the fact of the matter is, there's more to it than just encrypting data. And in many cases, because someone has been inside your network, they're going to do lots of other nefarious things, right? So they're
Oh,
going to get in there for a while. They're going to look around and they're going to take your data, right? And I'm not talking about the cat pictures. I'm talking about they're going to go find stuff that you don't want to become public. Because then when you get your little ransom note, they're going to say, hey, we have all this data. We have your customer information. We have your secret formula for Coca-Cola, whatever you want to say. So you better pay the ransom. They just want you to pay.
well, you had to break out the props. I mean,
I do.
I've got a hard hat in this room, back there. I've got all
You're going
kinds
to
of
need
props.
it.
Yeah, there you go. But when we think about ransomware, this is back to something Melissa and I have been evangelizing, preaching, pontificating about that ransomware is a disaster,
It is a
right?
disaster, absolutely.
And this new behavior is yet another type of consequence that we need
Mm-hmm.
to look into. And when we look at that here at Veeam, we there's good news, by the way. We're not trying to scare everybody away,
Don't worry, there's good news.
but we saw something pretty interesting on the register, and I'll drop the QR code. And actually, I'm not a good planner because our producers here would love to share the link here, but I don't know, Katie, if you've got the wit to do the QR code and then copy it, paste it, whatever, all that. But just the title here, it actually is onto something, Melissa. Kind of just reading this from El Reg. What sticks out to you here?
Pure extortion without the encryption, right? So let's just get in there and steal some stuff and hope they pay us. Why not, right?
Indeed, indeed. In fact, I can share with you one of the Veeam Vanguards that is one of the cool facets of our team. That I love the field stories that they bring in. One of the Vanguards actually shared a story of this, and it was very intriguing. Um, this particular situation, I'll debrief it in a kind of a non-disclosing way, but this particular situation, there was an infection of exfiltration only, and the quote unquote ransom note actually started with saying all of your systems and communications are fully intact, aka there's no reason you shouldn't be able to pay. And I actually think that's an intriguing approach. So we have to work backwards in the industry on how do we kind of avoid this problem. And this extortion, it really conflates a lot with exfiltration. So extortion is made possible by exfiltration of data, right? So we got to not necessarily think they're the same behavior, but one paves the way for the other. And so the am I thinking okay, or you
I
disagree?
think you're right. I think it's more troublesome because a lot of people are so focused on my stuff's going to get encrypted and all that kind of stuff. And they forget this part. And remember, we've talked about this too. There's double extortion. There's triple extortion, right? So you can be encrypted and they can steal your data. You can be encrypted, they can steal your data, and they can get all your customer data and start targeting those people too, right? So there's all these different levels of extortion. Again, the end of the day, they just want you to pay no matter what. This isn't surprising, but I think this is a little more alarming almost than being encrypted, right? Because like I got ransomware in the cloud, my stuff is encrypted, and I laughed and restored it. I didn't really care, right? But if they took my secret barbecue sauce recipe, I'd be in trouble.
I don't know. Depends on how good the sauce is.
My barbecue sauce is really good. Right?
Me
Just
too.
Just
you are the queen of improv in the kitchen, so it probably is pretty good. But you talk about those different, behaviors, and this is a three-headed dragon here. There is a problem with this exfiltration because it can go a couple of different ways. It can go to the holder of that data. Maybe so if you're an organization, basically your customer. If you're an organization, it could go to your competition. If you're an organization, it could go to the media, to the a news agency.
Anywhere, right?
Yeah. And then there's the dark web or the black net. I don't know. You got the hat. What do we call that bad internet thing?
It's called the dark web. That works.
Yeah, the bad internet thing. I like that better. By the way, Gallifrey and Robert Novak from the California, thanks for tuning in. I'll give you a like for that. There is interest, Melissa, for that recipe. So.
Oh, okay. I'll hook you up. Don't worry.
There you go. But yeah, these different behaviors are, in my opinion, really scary. Just like this dragon. And by the way, there is a Veeam dragon. I went deep into the troves of our PowerPointery and pulled this up. So I thought it was fitting for today. But especially when I talk about that one organization that I mentioned to you, that's just, this happens a lot, right? So
it does.
we're gonna get into some of the worst practices of what you're not supposed to do to prevent this type of stuff. But the good news is we have some help here for you. So I want to highlight something that I did recently. And so, Melissa, I took a piece of advice from you, and it's like one of those things. If you explain the same thing, what's your number? I said 5 times. If you explain the same thing 5 times, it's time to write it up.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
So I want to highlight, and I made it bold, the possible ransomware activity alarm. So how would you explain that one?
Okay. So Veeam 1, right? A lot of times we talk about Veeam 1 in the context of taking a look at your backup jobs and all that kind of good stuff and making sure you don't have any gaps in data protection. So if you are encrypted tomorrow, you know that all your jobs are run, you can meet your RPOs, all that jazz. Very important aspect of monitoring. But then if we head back to more traditional monitoring, we can look at your VMs and your hypervisor, right? We can take a look at those and we can monitor things that we know are indicative of ransomware infections. So for example, network transmit rate, usually a good sign something's going on if a machine starts randomly sending data when it doesn't, right? They're exfiltrating, they're taking the data. Disk activity, right? Oh, that encryption takes a lot of disk write cycles. And again, CPU, right? So when the CPU spikes up, that's because they're encrypting things. So we kind of monitor these things, and all these alarms, you can do some great stuff like take a baseline of your environment and customize it per application, learn how it works, right? All that good stuff. So that possible ransomware activity alarm looks at the most common signs of ransomware. And I know if you're kind of catching it at that point, it's happening, right? But at least you can immediately take action, start turning things off, kind of do something versus, oh, by the way, we had no idea that people were taking our data. It just disappeared.
Yeah, and you hit on something really important. When we talk about the possible ransomware activity alarm, those assessments, this logic it has, a couple of things. One is that it is an OR logic. Right. It is this sustained CPU and write or high network transmit, and it can be triggered either way. And in this post here, again, QR code that I didn't give Katie ahead of time, which I promise I'll never do again because she likes it when I do plans. But we did plan, but I just didn't share. But the other thing I want to highlight is that it's very important with Veeam 1 that you do something with these alarms. In fact, yes. I recommend these 5. These are the ones.
I got to throw in something here then, Rick.
Okay,
because in version 11 of Veeam 1, we put a ton of work into our APIs. you can get anything from Veeam 1 through our APIs. So if you're using a security information and event management system, right, you can feed the Veeam 1 data into there, right? So you can get all of your backup data about your backup environment in there, and as well as your hypervisor and VM environment about performance characteristics as well. So you can take this data and send it where it needs to go, so then you can make kind of better decisions, and the security team can get a look at things, and you really know what's going on.
Well, not everybody's ready for an API. I'm ready for an
Not
IPA.
everybody, not
But
everybody. But if you are, it's there, right? If
yeah.
you're not, there's nothing wrong with using Veeam 1 itself. There's a great web interface. There's a thicker client where you can get more information. Believe me, just using Veeam 1 in the absence of nothing else is way better than not doing anything. But if you have those more sophisticated tools in your environment, we can hook right into them as a data source.
100%. And then at a minimum, send an email. And
Right.
then some of the actions that can happen automatically with some of these alarms.
My favorite is possible ransomware activity. I disconnect from the network. Boom.
Okay, that's a good one.
That's what I do in my lab. You're out.
Well, I would do two things. I would possible ransomware activity, send a PowerShell script to the SIEM platform, and then disconnect or shut it down.
All right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Put a two-stepper.
That's good. That's good.
But that's the whole spirit of this. Like, get into doing something with these alarms. Because let me share with you guys something. The viewers, great. Robert caught that about. I'm not ready for an API, but I'm ready for an IPA. There we go. Good catch there. But it's really important, that one scenario I mentioned about the exfiltration situation. Veeam 1 caught it, Melissa. No joke. It caught that possible ransomware activity of network transmit. The breakdown, again, the worst practices. I want to pivot into that. The breakdown was nobody saw it. It's just sitting there yellow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we got to
That's a
do
problem.
something. That's the spirit of this bit here. These 5 alarms, somebody turning off immutability, restore operator activity report. Why that? Because honestly, that's the easiest way to exfiltrate data, restore it and take it home. Okay.
Gonna send that to the cloud. Wait, we don't use the cloud. What's going on here?
Right. It was a successful event. Yeah. So like, just have the visibility, get it to the security team. I walk through that in this post here. So that's the logic here. So you know, we're talking about what can we do.
I think what we can do is check the map and see who's tuning in right now.
Well, I should actually just check the chat, because I have moved my screen around and I can't see a thing. But what's going on?
You know, I can never see anything anyway, Rick.
All right. Well, I'm going to put we got California. Big shout out to Robert checking in the U.S. Oh, we're underrepresented in the North Americas, y'all. Maybe we can work on that. Let's go over to EMEA. We got some action there. We got France, we got Romania, Turkey, Poland, and the Netherlands. And let's go down to, we got Brazil and Uruguay. Did I say that right, y'all? Let me know if I did. And then let's go over to the Middle East SARC region. We've got South Africa. We've got Kenya. We've got Iran. We've got India. That's it. That big one. So everyone, please, if you haven't already, let us know where you're from in the chat, so we can keep working the map application.
And Houston, Texas just joined us too from YouTube.
There we go.
Hello, Houston.
Hello, Houston. I love me some Texas, going there later this month. So yeah, good stuff. All right, so back to what we can do. I love that API approach. Sorry, I almost got tripped up in my own joke there. But I also think there's some medium answers too. And I want to go into what I want to call, Melissa, okay, the buzzword, but it's the art of the possible, right? Bear with me. So if you haven't heard, there is the Veeam data integration API.
Oh, this is a good one.
Yeah. This is a way through PowerShell, okay, where you can crack open your backups, many types here, by the way. Look at all these different image-based backups.
Basically all of them.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, we can crack open through the publish API, right? The publish commandlet right there, publish VBR backup content. Now, this is the art of the possible. What would you do with this, Melissa? Let me ask you a question. What would you do with that?
Oh, well, I might look for nasty things hiding, right? If I'm keeping up to date on my threat intelligence and I'm seeing some people talking about new file types or new ways ransomware is getting in, or if there's something going on, I might go look for that kind of stuff.
Exactly. So this is an API through PowerShell that can allow you, this is in backup and replication, not in Veeam 1 like we were talking just a second ago, but this API will let you crack open your backup file and do a scan from a flat file system standpoint, which is very powerful because some of these threat actors, the malwares, regardless of how they behave, exfiltrate, encrypt, delete, whatever they do, in this scenario, once we've backed it up, we're working with a flat file system. So these tools can't hide in memory, and we also can do it without any exclusions, maybe more aggressive scans and the absolute latest definitions. So I think this is kind of a secret weapon thing. I've seen one of the Veeam Vanguards has done some amazing things with this, right? It can be as simple as a half page of PowerShell. So for the most important things, I highly recommend going into that data integration API. All right, so back in the what can we do, I think we should pivot to what should we
don't do this. Please don't do this.
Oh, come on. Yeah, don't do this stuff. All right. In fact, I'll ask everybody on the stream, if you have a ransomware preparedness, ransomware resiliency, worst practice, drop it in on the chat here.
What did I tweet yesterday, Rick, after we got off the phone preparing for this? I'm like, make sure you encrypt your data so someone else doesn't do it for you. I stole that from you. I steal all of your stuff, yes.
Friends, she steals my one-liners.
Okay? I love them.
She's bad about that. I might bring out a dad joke in this regard. We'll see.
Ooh, please.
All right, so number one, random collection of worst practices is having everything, including in the cloud. Tell me about.
Please don't just leave everything connected to the internet. Like, for example, there's tools out there that you can go and scan for things connected to the internet. And my favorite example is people like to leave vCenter publicly accessible on the internet and name it vCenter. Like, come on, that is just people looking to get in. They find someone's credentials that happens to be a vSphere admin because you've given too many people access and you're done, basically. So don't have things connected to the internet that don't need to be.
And even the other side of that, you might be on a private networking, through just DNS and routing, it can get to the internet as well, because then the exfiltration type stuff could transfer.
They can send their stuff.
Yeah, so even just work backwards, not just internet facing, but down the network too. So that's the number one worst practice. Number two would be just not being aware of these types of behaviors. I mean, well, you're here, you're watching this, so
that's good, right? So there's ransomware, goes after Windows, it goes after Linux, it goes after VMware, it can just steal your stuff, everything, right? So being here is a good first step.
Indeed. And then I'll go so far to say, the world will never be done with this type of thing. You have to always keep sharpening that saw. All right. Number three is too many people with too much access.
The worst. This is the worst.
It's really bad in the sense that if you have an account that gets taken over, or even worse, some of these exfiltrations could be aided and abetted by an internal person too, right? So it can go two different ways, but reassess the access. That's the best practice.
Principle of least privilege. People should only have the access they need to do their jobs, nothing else.
Indeed.
This is probably the number one thing that will protect you if someone gets in, because once they get in, they put a keylogger on a computer, they get credentials, they have the keys to the kingdom, right? So too many people, too much access, very bad.
Too many, lots of problems. That's a recipe for the wrong direction. Not monitoring anything or enough. So we talked about Veeam 1, but I should also add, Veeam is not the end all be all here, right?
Of course not.
Right. Real-time endpoint and across the enterprise, anti-malware, anti-security team.
Hard because there's this thing called like alert fatigue, right? Where like, I'm sick of the alerts, so I'm gonna turn them off. I'm sick of them, right? So like, people do that.
Indeed, right. Oh, it's too noisy. That possible ransomware activity alarm just goes
off too much. Let me turn it off.
Wrong answer, indeed. So, by the way, speaking of that one, you can tune it. You can adjust the levels, and you could have different levels of your infrastructure have a more aggressive setting or
I
even
mean,
a
you can
more.
even look in Veeam one over time and look at a group of VMs with like business view or something. Look at application level. What are the characteristics of this application? What is the normal expected range? And then use those values. When something's out of range, you get an alert.
Indeed. Robert in the chat did share a worst practice, which he's already in our list somehow. I don't know how he did it, but Robert's shared best practice is don't wait for a compromise before you figure out how you would recover when it happens. Not if.
Yeah.
That's kind of like what you've been saying for the last, what, 3 years? I don't know.
Years at this point, right? Years.
But exfiltration is a different angle, right? So you could make an angle of what is your exfiltration response plan? And so my advice is really talk to some who have gone through that and see, of course you want to prepare not to have to deal with it, but if that does happen, I mean, that becomes an interesting thing if it does happen. All right. Oh, wait, not securing data and systems enough to begin with. What does that mean to you?
The problem is with a lot of this stuff is it can be really, really overwhelming for a lot of organizations, like to have someone come and say, sorry, you're going to be in trouble. You're going to have bad time. You're not ready. It's about picking simple things and starting with them, right? Or can you overhaul all of your IT security in a year, a week, a month, a year, maybe even 2 years? Probably not. But it's about picking those things with high impact and focusing on them. For example, lock down your VMware environment. These threat actors have literally documentation telling them how to break in, just like anything critical. Lock down your AD, right? Start with the places that will have the most impact if they are breached, basically, right? So kind of do what you can, but make sure that you're protecting the assets that need to be protected.
I spoke to one organization about this topic who actually was going down the mindset approach of I have to prepare for this to be exfiltrated. And so they actually took a mindset that I had a few years ago back 2 levels. So I used a few years ago, like when I was a little kid in IT. But anyways, like when I grew up in IT, Melissa, I used to say, if data leaves your building, encrypt it. Okay, that was my old school rule.
That's good.
Right?
No, it's good.
Like on a tape, like you remember the old phrase, a tape fell off a truck. I've worked it back myself, but this individual went even farther. He says, have this, high-end encryption even on that first production copy source, because I got to mentally prepare that it gets picked up and taken. In this example, this was a municipality, and it was around criminal data, crime scene evidence, that type of highly sensitive type of information. And so it was encrypted all the way, everywhere, every time, including its protection, but also on its production state, so that if it was taken out, is basically unusable. Martin drops in a worst practice. Don't install critical updates frequently. I think you mean
that is the worst.
Yeah.
No, this is the worst practice. So don't install them frequently. Like, don't even bother installing the updates. And if you're going to do them, don't do them that often. Yeah, that's a horrible practice too.
Indeed.
Thank you.
And in fact, I don't have a specific breakdown to exfiltration types of ransomwares, but top 3 modes of entry and behaviors are phish, remote access, and update exploitation. Right? You tackle those, you really address a lot of the attack vectors, and then some of these things like internet connectivity, especially for exfiltration, will really help. All right, last one on the list, I think, yes, is forgetting about your favorite topic, the regular things, fire, flood, and blood, and regular ransomware.
That's true, because remember, this could be a multi-point attack, right? We could be dealing with encryption and exfiltration, right? So it's important to remember the big picture. Ransomware is a disaster. Don't let anybody tell you differently, right? The best place to start is with your disaster recovery processes and upgrade them and hone them from there, right? I hate when these people come in and say, oh, well, cyber is different in ransomware and blah, blah, blah. That just scares people and no one can get anything done. So start with what you know, start with you have with their traditional disaster recovery practices, and then up level that to be ready to recover from ransomware.
Speaking of which, we had a chat come in. This one's on LinkedIn from a Pachula. Welcome. This is a really good one here. So the question is, hello, Veeam team. Did you ever consider a dedicated VM for a simple recovery environment? I can download it from the internet and run a full Veeam server based on my backups in case I lost my Veeam server. So, Melissa, this is actually one of those emerging ransomware best practices I've harvested from Veeam support, where some users are starting to build these what I call recovery ready consoles.
Yeah, basically.
That have remembered connections, but they're always powered off. And then I told you about this, and you said, dude, they're making DIY orchestrator is basically what they're doing.
Yeah, basically. So yeah, absolutely. So I talk a lot about this, especially from a vSphere protected. You need to have kind of this recovery environment that's off when it doesn't need to be used, ready to go. You should have a clean Veeam server in there, right? So powered on, import your backups, and off you go. And if you're using Veeam Disaster Recovery Orchestrator, that has an embedded version of backup and replication. That's actually how I recovered from ransomware. My main BNR server got hit. I went to Orchestrator, I started that BNR console, I rescanned my backups from the cloud, and I was restoring in like 6 minutes.
Yeah, so Patula, if you can do that, go for it, and then the Orchestrator product at the next level. So thank you for those questions and those shared best practices. Back to the slides. We got one more worst practice that we've got to share here.
Oh no, what is it?
Not encrypting backup data in the public cloud. So
because someone else will do it for you.
Yeah, yes, that's my one-liner that she's stolen.
I'm gonna steal it over and over again.
Again, let me see if I can say it right. I recommend encrypting your backup data in the public cloud, or someone else will do it for you. And I didn't mess it up. So there's words of wisdom. That's up there with Veeam 1. I guarantee you it'll tell you something about your environment you didn't know, but you need to fix, I'm here all week. Wait, no, I'm on vacation next week. So anyways, I just got word from the producers that the application is ready. We got a couple more entries, including a very interesting one. Let's go to North America. We have added Florida, and is it Missouri or Missouri? Y'all know what I'm talking about there. In the Caribbean, we had Curacao. That may be a first. That might be, and we've added Belgium in the European region. So Curacao, I've been there, by the way. I can't quite see if we have it clicked because it's a small little. I think it's, if I remember right, is Curacao a protectorate from the Netherlands? I think I can't remember, but anyways, I have been there. So awesome. So Melissa, hey, thank you so much for rocking it here with me today.
Always a pleasure, Rick. Always a pleasure.
All right. And Monday, the Industry Insight is going to talk about organizational alignment with Jeff Reichert, and I believe Jason Buffington are going to rock that. So Melissa, it's been real. It's been fun. Thank you so much here today.
Thank you, Rick.
All right, everyone. That concludes the stream. Have a great weekend.